Welcome to the weekly rundown. We're glad you're here to join us, and we hope you like our podcast. If you do, please leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to hear more from us. Today I'm joined by my friend Nicole.
Hey, I'm Nicole.
And I'm also joined by my lovely girlfriend Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
This has been an insane week. The Taliban is absolutely taking over Afghanistan, and we're just sitting here watching the entire situation crumble right before us. So this should be a pretty interesting podcast. I'm pretty excited to just talk about what's going on and, talk about some narratives.
Sounds good. I'm ready.
Yeah. All right. So the biggest news of this week has obviously been the Taliban takeover, and it's just absolutely gut-wrenching. We've been in this country for 20 years. Like, do you guys know the history of kind of like what, you guys obviously know about 9/11, but after that, we were immediately in Afghanistan trying to hunt down Osama, and we put an end to the Taliban like right around then, and that's what this entire war's been fought over for the past 20 years. We've been fighting the Taliban and trying to put an end to their...
Yeah, because Afghanistan is like our allies, right? So...
It was just, I think it was more of, we don't want terror.
I think it was more the war on terrorism.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I think because we were also in Iraq, we were just all over the Middle East, trying to...
But I feel like at the same time they did like want our help, like some of the people there.
Yeah, no, they absolutely did, and that's why we spent 20 years there, but...
So I guess like in a way.
In a way. But I believe that it was more about the war on terror, and they were more scared of the Taliban and wherever the Taliban was, as opposed to helping out Afghanistan.
Okay.
But it's very sad to see that the country that you've seen be a world power over its history is now, we lost Vietnam, Saigon happened, and now we're at this point where we just lost another embassy. Iraq, we lost an embassy in 2012 or 14. I don't remember exactly which year, but we need better leadership. We need a better chief of the commander-in-chief. We need a better just leadership in the military front.
Now I do have a question because I've always sucked at history. Was Al-Qaeda like a part of Taliban, or is it completely separate?
I thought they were two completely separate terrorist groups. But...
Okay, so do you guys know how like ISIS was created? Like it was an insurgent group from another group, from like the main group. So Al-Qaeda was that. Al-Qaeda was a group from the Taliban that was, I guess, a bit more extremist. They didn't fully, like, they wanted to do different things than what the Taliban said, but they were an insurgent group from the Taliban. That's why we were fighting the Taliban, because it's these cultural ideas, these ideas of, death to America, death to this and that,
Death to freedom, basically, is what I hear, yeah.
No, exactly, and that's exactly what it is. We'll dive into women's rights in Afghanistan currently, and that's a major topic that goes along with Afghanistan. But yeah, they hate us because we treat everybody the same. They hate us because we don't follow a religious path in our governance. So, that causes them to be angry. That causes them to cause terror. That causes them to fly two planes into Twin Towers.
Just chaotic.
I heard they're like trying to make negotiations. I heard that in the news. My dad and I were talking about it yesterday.
For what?
They were saying that they're gonna give women some sort of rights. I was like,
No, I think that's horseshit.
Yeah.
Well,
we're actually
we're gonna dive into it in a little bit. So, let's talk about our first topic that comes with Afghanistan, and that's the blaming of Trump. We've seen through Biden's speech, Biden was deflecting and trying to blame Trump, trying to blame the peace treaty that we had signed with the Taliban in order to pull our troops in a safe and effective way.
I personally think, I actually talked about this yesterday with my family, I personally think either way, I think they probably would have taken over, even if we pulled out then or now.
Yes, it was planned destruction. It was either way. We knew that we were leaving this country, and the Taliban
So,
was going to take over.
Personally, I don't think you can really. I don't really blame either of the presidents because I think like it would have happened.
Yeah, the real bad guy here is the Taliban.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but there were definitely many ways that we could have altered the way that we evacuated people in order to make sure that people remained
Absolutely.
safe.
I mean, didn't Biden say like they were gonna pull them out at September 11? Ironically, so that date.
I
But
think
for
that's
some
morbid.
reason
I think
they're
that's
all
terrible.
gone now.
I think that's so much worse than May 1st because you're just giving people a 20-year reminder that we just lost this war. It's 20 years after 9/11, and now we're just going to pull out. We spent 20 years, like he was just trying
And it's
to make
like
us.
all for nothing. It
No,
seems.
exactly. Like I think that's so much worse than just pulling our troops out May 1st. But Trump had an agreement in place, and it's when we criticize Biden, it's the fact that he left billions of dollars of military equipment there. It's that he
Yeah.
left people. It's that he took out armed forces before he took out civilians. That he is now flying Afghanis into this country before he's flying in American citizens. Those
Yeah,
are the
that's
issues that we
really
have with the Biden administration and what he's doing. He's not taking into account American citizens. He's not taking into account what really matters. Like our soldiers are there to protect people, and like it's a couple more days of getting people out of there, so that way it's more people are safe.
And as like an American United States president, you'd think that they'd put Americans first, like what Trump always
Yep.
said, America first. But I guess that's not really the case when it comes to Biden.
It's America last. It's,
Yeah.
You know, this greatly benefits China. I was telling Sarah's family about there's $1 trillion of minerals located in Afghanistan right now. China absolutely profits off of that because as soon as the Taliban takes over, you know, who comes into that country exploring their minerals? It's China. China is going to end up taking over the mineral market. They're going to end up having a monopoly on all resources in the entire world. This is why they wanted the Taliban in power. This is why Joe didn't care about what was going on. This is
Yeah.
why...
Like he has things going on with China. Obviously, he's being paid by them, something along those lines. And you know about Hunter Biden being over there, and
Oh, yeah.
you know.
But let's dive into this article about Mike Pompeo talking about President Joe Biden blaming Trump for the current Taliban takeover. Starts off by saying that the former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on Sunday dismissed President Joe Biden's blaming of his predecessor for fueling the current Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, calling the suggestion pathetic. I wouldn't have let my 10-year-old son get away from this kind of pathetic blame shifting, Pompeo said on Fox News Sunday. You should be less focused on trying to blame this on someone else than to solving the problem of making sure that we protect and defend American security. And that's what we were just talking about. We had a duty to make sure that every interpreter, everybody who is an American citizen and their families can come to America and make sure that they are safe. We've fought this war, and he came out and said in his speech, why should we fight a war for people that don't want to fight the war? First of all, that's false. There have been more deaths per year from Afghani soldiers in the past 7 years than America has had
yeah.
the entire war. The entire war.
But I did hear like, I know that might be true, but I did hear like their government, like when they took over, they literally just gave up. Like they literally just surrendered. Like they didn't even try.
Yes, practically. And
And part of
He's
that isn't
saying-
really on us though.
no, I know, but I'm saying he's trying to make it out to be like the entire war was, you know, he was trying to make it out to be like he just left because they didn't care. And then, but in reality it was he let the Taliban come in quicker. He didn't supply
Yeah,
them
and
with
he
any
rushed
forces.
everybody to leave at
No,
once.
exactly.
Yeah, that doesn't help the situation at all.
No, it's if you were, you've seen the Office episode where they're doing the fire drill. There's everybody trying to run out as quickly as possible. What kind of leadership do you need in that position? Do you need somebody who's going to remain calm and show you the way to the exit, or do you need somebody screaming around the door, the window, At the end of the episode, we saw that the windows were broken, doors were broken, people were going through ceiling tiles. Like, it's insane. It's, we have a responsibility to go about our military in a smart way, in a smart and effective way, in a way that can protect Americans. And that's not what we did in this situation. That's
Not at all.
I also heard from my sister's friend that she works at the U.S. Embassy in Guatemala, and she got offered to go to Afghanistan for like a boatload of money.
Yeah, I've heard that it's one of the toughest embassy
You
positions.
make the most money.
Yeah, big risk, big reward.
Yeah.
And that's life.
I don't even know if I would take that risk, honestly.
No.
After seeing what we just did, there's a bit of
Yeah,
hindsight.
like I don't really trust anything that's going on right now.
No, and especially if you were a white woman in that country, like you
Oh,
don't want to
yeah.
be. You don't want to be able. No, and
It was always one of those things where like women didn't have rights, like they don't let them
Mhm.
through that group. It was like they always have to be with a man. They can't go to school after they're 12.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
The craziest thing to me, well, not the craziest thing, because there's a lot of crazy things, but one thing that I saw was, if you saw the CNN reporter who's doing live reports
Mhm.
on
I know what you're
Afghanistan,
saw
talking
that.
about because I saw that too.
on the first day of the Taliban taking over, she's dressed in her normal clothing. She's not wearing any kind of head scarves or any kind of protective gear. And then the next day, she's wearing a burqa, live on TV. That just shows the amount of power that the Taliban has in the country at this point.
Yeah, that even like people that aren't from there still have to dress the way that they do or they
Well-
want them to do. I think that's kind of scary.
Well, they're also telling the U.S., like the Taliban has been, that they don't have the freedom of the press.
Yep.
So I don't think they really want reporters and all of that, like in there.
I must also say that she had accepted the cultures of Afghanistan people, of the Afghani people, and like she did sometimes wear like headwear and like oftentimes wear headwear and this and that. And like I just wanted to highlight the difference between like a day can make in that country where it's like this is the rule of government kind of at that time on that Sunday.
Even if you don't believe in the religion, you still have to dress up like that.
No. She dove into it. She culturally assimilated to the
I'm sure they
Afghani
make
people.
you do that through the Taliban sometimes.
Either that or maybe they get violent on you if you don't.
Well, yes, that's exactly what I'm
That's
saying.
yeah.
I'm saying overnight the culture shifted. Overnight, she went from, okay, this is socially acceptable and reasonable for women in my society, to the very next day having to wear a burqa and, shield what she looks like. That is the extremes of the Taliban. That is when you see, okay, women's rights are going to go out the door at this point.
Yeah.
We're already seeing. I saw a video the other day of people just walking on the street with two people hanging above them. This is exactly what's going to be happening. This is exactly what the Taliban is about. They're a terrorist organization. They provide terror, and you're going to fear them until the point where you follow them, because you're worried about what they can do to you. And that's how they build power. That's how they're going to keep building power. On Saturday, Biden released a statement aiming to blame former President Donald Trump's deal with the Taliban in 2020, which promised reduced forces and a prisoner swap. Biden said the deal left the Taliban in the strongest position militarily since 2001 and left him with few choices. Follow through on the deal with a brief extension to get our forces and our allies' forces out safely, or ramp up our presence and send more American troops to fight once again in another country's civil conflict. Now that's not true. What Joe Biden said was false. We have been operating with 2,500 American troops there for the past 7 years, and we've kept stability. We've been able to keep peace.
Yeah.
with
I
2,500
mean,
troops.
weren't the women like able to actually go to school
Yes.
and
Yes. We developed programs for school. I don't know if everybody remembers, but we were sending money for gender studies to Afghanistan,
what you're
a
talking
part of
about.
the
wow.
spending bill for the COVID relief.
Mm.
You know,
I did hear that.
yeah. This is all, we were building a nation and then we pulled out. We pulled everything out at the one very moment, and there's a lot of criticism for a lot of things that Biden did. People say, okay, you can blame Trump's treaty, but in reality, it's Biden broke that treaty. Biden decided to extend the deadline, which was strictly against the treaty.
Yeah.
Deadline to move out was May 1st, and it's
And it's like, how can the Taliban take our president seriously if he does stuff like that? Like,
Yeah.
seriously.
exactly. What if, for some reason, Trump had an inclination that the Taliban would take over right around now, and that's why he wanted to get his troops out on May 1st? What if, for some reason, you think about the Taliban fighting season and realize that they don't fight in the winter? They only really fight in the spring, so if you pull all of your troops out before
mean,
then,
it
who do
could
they
be
have to
that.
fight?
It could be that, but it could have just been us being there for so long that they just wanted to bring him back.
No. I'm saying exactly. I'm saying we set a deadline for May 1st, and Biden went
I
against
thought
that
you were
deadline.
saying they set a deadline because they knew it was happening. I'm like, I don't know if they really knew.
No. I'm saying they wanted to pull their troops out, and I'm saying of the entire year, they set the deadline for May 1st because they wanted to pull their troops out before Afghanistan got into their fighting season.
Yeah.
Biden said he wanted more time. I knew from the jump that it was just a terrible idea.
Yeah, and it's like, how can our allies trust us to help them in time
Yeah.
of need? Like,
Mhm.
how? Well, when we just say, oh, well,
Yep.
screw you, we're going. That's basically what this is.
Taiwan on Tuesday came out with a statement and said, or not Taiwan, the Chinese government came out on Tuesday and made a statement about Taiwan and told the Taiwanese citizens, when we come for you, not if we come for you, when we come for you, the United States will not be there for you.
Oh my
That's
god.
what they said about Taiwan?
Yes. Does
And
that tell,
I don't know if you guys know, like, a lot of protests and stuff has been trying to go on, and they get, like, literally hurt and beat up by the police there over
Yeah, they
it.
do.
Like,
Yeah.
in Hong Kong, too.
These are major conflicts that the United States has to be strong in. These are major conflicts that the United States are supposed to be world leaders in and be able to handle.
Right, it's our values. This is what we fight for.
These are countries that we've entered treaties with. These are countries that we've entered into peace agreements with and said that we will protect you and that we will defend your nation in order to make sure that you are safe, in order to make sure that you are a thriving civilization.
Are we allies with
Yeah.
Taiwan?
Yeah, Taiwan, we have agreements with them that we will protect them if anybody attacks them. So, when we're weak on different fronts, it forces our hand in other places. It forces us to look weak against Taiwan, and it gives China ideas. We need to be stronger. We need to make better decisions. This could have been handled in so many different ways. Biden had how many days until May 1st when he was inaugurated? How many days until May 1st when he was elected to decide how he was going to get these troops out? How he was going to get these civilians out of the country? And he didn't. It was pretty obvious he didn't develop a plan. It was pretty obvious he didn't make any maneuvers that benefited American people.
Yeah.
Pompeo pushed back on the suggestion that the deal left the country in a more vulnerable state, saying the Taliban was under control even when the Trump administration had significantly reduced its forces last year. We noted that we have reduced our forces to 2,500, and we've done very well. We haven't had anybody die on our side. We haven't had, we've been a good force, and we've been able to keep control, and we've been able to keep the peace, because just the sheer sign of our people being there is a sign that says we can get nuked at any point. We can get an airstrike on us at any point if we start acting up. And that's what was happening. when Soleimani and his army were going to invade Iraq and try and take over that embassy, Trump sent out that mean tweet. I'll put it up in the podcast. It said, don't you dare step another foot closer to the embassy or we will kill you.
I remember that.
2 days later, this person is off of the face of the earth. Okay? That is the leadership we need in this country.
Yeah.
Okay? We say we're going to do something, and we do it effectively. We do it in a way that says, you know what? You have no right to step into our land. You have no right to step into our embassy. You have no right to try to take over any of our stuff. And we will provide force.
Yeah, it was kind of like they took over the U.S. embassy, and what are we doing? Like, just left.
And it's crazy because he got so criticized over it too. And it's like, you do realize he's protecting us, right? Yeah. Do you want to be like them? Like, do you want to be like the Taliban? Like,
Soleimani was a terrible, terrible person. Somebody who was literally trying to kill Americans at the embassy, who was trying to take over the United States embassy. How did we not think for a second, oh, this is probably bad, okay? They'll probably try to take over the country if we allow them to.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it now. Biden was the limpest president we've ever had against the Taliban throughout the entire time that he was in office. He's been in office.
For half a year, mind you. Half a year and all this crap's already happened.
And they laugh at us. We didn't blow up our weapons.
Yeah. As we should have.
Yeah. We'll dive more into that topic later, but like it's just absolute ineptitude by the Biden administration. And you know what was hilarious? They were supposed to get press briefings by Kamala on Monday. Apparently she was running around yelling, "You are not pinning this shit on me. You are not pinning this shit on me," running away from every single interview. Like White House aides.
Where'd you hear from?
Like reported from White House aides. Like people that are working at the White House. And it's just like, this is exactly what when Republicans think about what the Biden administration looks like, and like our biggest extremes, and this is it. Like this is what we're looking, like this is what we think when we're thinking of like, okay, this is what the Biden administration is going to be. It's going to be a bunch of clown shows. It's going to be a bunch of TikTokers making videos about, getting vaccinated and this and that. And it's like,
oh yeah, there's so much propaganda for these vaccines. It's ridiculous.
We posted. Do you guys know which influencer I'm talking about? I don't know the kid's name, but it's a dude. He's got nails. It's white nails. He was like, it's a day. He's an intern.
Yeah, that guy.
We posted a video about like.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I gotta show you it. I'll put it up in
propaganda with like the guy who holds the signs.
Oh yeah, that's.
And you took a picture with Joe Biden.
Yeah, no, he's gotten Olivia Rodrigo. He's gotten the sign dude. He's gotten I don't know the kid's name, but it's a dude who just.
I don't know what that is.
I gotta show you the video.
Democracy's calling. See you, Daddy. Bye.
Hi, my name is Cooper, and this is a day in my life as a White House intern.
We did a joke. Hey, everyone. Vogue.
Usually I start off with a big coffee. Sorry, they're like really strict in here.
Hey, Jenny. I booked you a nail appointment, love.
Yeah, I didn't tell you to do that.
It's called Initiative. Hi, White House. This is Cooper. I don't think so. Oh, doesn't matter.
This is actually the entrance to the West Wing. This is so fun, and it's really prestigious.
Hey, POTUS. Is Olivia Rodrigo still here?
No. We've come a long way in our fight against this virus. We've vaccinated 160 million Americans. Are you getting this all down?
Don't worry, Queen. It's all right here.
Cooper.
Sorry, Miss Jen. And Jen, don't forget to have fun. Spirit fingers, Mama.
We need to get shots in the arms of every single American.
I'm heading to a haircut.
Comment if you want me to make more of these.
Yeah.
He's just walking around and doing, like, he's supposed to be interning, but it just shows how inept the Biden administration
It's a joke,
is. It's just like you could just see that this being
and he's
exactly
LGBT, right?
He is.
Yeah, like that's very clear. And it's like I'm also from the LGBT, but it's like, I don't act like that. Why
No.
would normal people act like that, especially if they're
It's
in a
very-
serious position that
Exactly.
he's in?
I was
Like,
just
it
about
just
to
makes
say
us
it's
look like a
unproductive.
joke.
Yeah.
It really does. It's
Yes.
ridiculous.
No, exactly. Exactly. If I was part of the community, I would be offended by it. I would
Oh,
be-
absolutely.
It seems offensive. It's just like this is.
Like, this
it's
is
a
not
bad
who we are.
representation of the gay
Yeah.
community. It's a very bad representation of the LGBTQ plus.
Just makes us look like a joke and probably makes people hate us more. That doesn't help.
No.
Yeah.
And I was gonna mention that we released that video 2 days before the Taliban took over Kabul.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Just
That's-
showing our priorities. Just
Yeah.
showing what we care more about. We care more about vaccines, and we care more about just TikTok influencers. trying-
500 genders and so many unimportant things. Like, if you identify as whatever good for you, if you want to be called whatever good for you, I may not agree with it, but it just makes us look like a joke. And
It
and
does.
the intolerance that they have, like, oh, you misgendered me. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, damn, don't be so mad. Like, I'll try
Don't make
next
it so
time.
Don't make
Like,
it so tough to gender you properly.
right, like, this is all still new stuff, especially
It's-
for people that's never heard this before.
See, and that's a major issue that there is with the entire theory of, the gender.
More than two genders.
Yeah. And it's when you start making shit up, people can't keep up. The people that aren't like hyper focusing on this stuff will not be able to
Yeah,
keep
and
up.
they hyper focus on themselves. They don't focus
Exactly.
on actual real issues,
No.
or maybe therapy could help.
And I think hyper focusing on themselves is what causes all of these names to come up and all these, because in reality a lot of these mix, a lot of these have very similar practices, and it's just like you're doing it in order to create your own like thing, in order to create a bigger movement.
Which, hey,
for-
good for you, but you can't be expecting other people
to
to
go along with
agree
it.
or
When
go
they
along
don't
with
know.
it. Yeah.
Nobody knows. Not everybody knows everything that's going on with just. Nobody knows what. Nobody can keep up with this.
We
There are
really
how many letters
can't.
in it?
Yeah.
There are more than 26 letters. You have to relearn
I
an
saw
alphabet.
like pronouns of like fey and fair, and it's
Yeah.
just like, what the hell is that?
You have to relearn an alphabet just to
Yeah,
be able
the
to.
whole English language. It's like, good for you. Again, if you want to be called like that, I will respect you. If you respect me, I'll call you whatever. Other people don't even do that, but I'll at least do that. I don't agree with it. I think there are maybe 3 genders, like male, female, non-binary. I think it should just be that. I don't think it really should go off as other things that are made up. But
I think we should all
I'll
like.
still respect you.
My whole thinking is, if we're at the point where we're kind of accepting of different genders, then let's sit down and come up with what the genders are, so that we have an understanding.
Yeah, and scientific evidence. Like, I'd like to actually see that.
That would be interesting. I'd like to see that too. Honestly, I feel like that would actually like bring a lot more like I guess sense to the table instead of
No,
like
exactly.
Having, like,
and,
guy people make their
people want
decisions.
that, you
And
know.
that is the biggest issue that's causing a gender war in our country. It's the fact
and
that we
like
can't
we're
sit down and
focusing
talk
on
about it.
this.
Well, we can't talk about it. We can't have a conversation about it. We can't just sit there and be like, I don't really understand what you're doing. Can you explain it in a way that can help me understand?
Right, and they take it as an attack on them, and it's
No,
like,
exactly.
no,
And it's
we
just
just
like-
want to know.
We want to know, we want to understand, because a lot of it doesn't make sense to some people. It just, we're not gonna, it's a lot of people who are, think about the older populations. I can't imagine that they're very comfortable with this.
Right.
They've tended to have certain conservative values in that sense, where it's, I don't want my kid growing up to be that way, and I don't want this and that, and it's, for them, it's a little bit weird.
Mm-hmm. And it's hard for people to change once they hit around the age of 30, 35. Like, I've
Yeah.
known this in my psychology classes. It's really hard for your personality and your values to change after that point.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we already know so much at
Yeah.
that point that you're like kind of set in your ways,
Yeah.
But once you develop your frontal lobe, you're kind of at a point where, your brain isn't going to develop any more. Your brain isn't gonna be any bigger. So we kind of, you're kind of stuck in your ways.
Mhm.
All right, so let's dive back into the article. So Biden criticized the current. Pompeo criticized the current administration for yielding to countries like Iran, Russia, and China, which ultimately emboldened the Taliban to attack without any concerns of consequences. Particularly, Pompeo pointed to the Trump administration's more aggressive tactics, such as the death of Iranian general, I don't know how to pronounce his name, I don't want to butcher it, but Soleimani. That's something that we were talking about. It's when you say something and you do it, people listen. The Taliban knew not to mess with us when Trump was blowing up them, when Trump was drone striking their military leaders. So, yeah, we all want a nice president, and we all want
a good leader.
Yeah.
Somebody who will defend us.
Yes. And we don't care how nice he is. We don't care how polite he is to everybody. We want this. In fact, the mean tweets helped us in world affairs. There were so many times when Trump literally came out and said, if you step foot in this place, if you inch any closer, we will kill you. And you know what we did? We killed him, or they ran away.
Which I think is good. When I was a liberal a few years ago, I thought, Trump is so immature, that he's childish, he's not a good leader because of the things he says, the things that comes out of his mouth is absolutely stupid. But now that I have looked into this and I've listened to other people's point of views, I'm like, hey, whatever he's doing is kind of making sense. I might not agree with how he says it or portrays it, but he's actually doing pretty good things, and the media just makes him look like this evil person that we need to impeach twice or 3 times or 4 times, even when he wasn't president, they were still trying to impeach him.
His rhetoric was terrifying to the Democrats, but his policy was greatly beneficial to the American people.
Very.
It's insane that we let this guy go. It's insane that we let him just
I don't even know if we did that, but that's another conversation.
We didn't.
Yeah,
I know I didn't play any part into that. Pompeo goes on to say, were I still the Secretary of State with Commander-in-Chief like President Trump, the Taliban would have understood that there were real costs to pay if there were plots against the United States of America. Soleimani learned that lesson, and the Taliban would have learned it as well. Pompeo also criticized the Biden administration for prioritizing climate change and critical race theory.
Yeah. I haven't been seeing much about critical race theory right now. I've been seeing more climate change on the news and stuff, like all that stuff going on. And
it's distractions.
It really is. It's always.
It's a lot of times things that a big issue that I have with climate change and the rhetoric for policy with climate change is that if we just stop sending our government officials to other places on private jets, we would save a lot of carbon.
And not even that, America isn't even the biggest problem. Like China, India are like the worst in this world.
Africa.
Oh yeah, Africa too. I don't even know much about Africa, but I know like India and the pollution, and China obviously doesn't care. They don't care about their humans. They obviously don't care about everything else around them.
I posted a pollutant map recently on Instagram the other day, and it showed that there was one hotspot in Alaska, which makes sense because that's where we get a lot of our gas from.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we bought Alaska because we wanted their pipeline. That was like the main reason for it.
Shoot, I didn't even know that. See?
You should look into that history of that. It's really interesting. It's like we were heavily criticized for buying this land that's like way off in the distance, that's like not really like, anywhere close to the rest of our climate, that's not, this or that. And like it didn't have like anything but a pipeline. And I'm pretty sure it was Roosevelt who bought it. And he was heavily criticized. The president that bought it was heavily criticized because they were like, this is going to be nothing. And then did pretty much what Trump did, and he brought energy efficiency into the United States.
Yeah, and then didn't Biden like close the pipelines somewhere?
Not
or?
that, but he closed the. God, well, it's slipping my mind right now. I can't think of the pipeline name for that. He shut down, but he shut down a pipeline here, and it's causing. Look at the gas prices. When he did it, every Republican was out here saying, "Okay, we knew that this was going to happen. We knew that Trump being out of office was meant higher gas prices because Biden didn't care. Biden doesn't want you using a gas car. Biden doesn't want you."
Yeah, isn't that like somewhere in the infrastructure bill too? With
Yep.
yeah, priorities, man, priorities.
No, exactly. It's just I would like for this technology to get better before we push for it. Just
yeah,
because
trillions of dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, we're putting trillions of dollars into getting into this, but I really hope that there's a plan to make it better. When the power outages in Texas were going on, we were seeing problems with their energy because none of their renewable sources could store any energy. So people ran out of it super quickly. There was no, and when there's no wind, that's a problem. Because there are times when there is no wind in certain places, and when you put it's money, it's taxpayer funding for these windmills that won't even provide you power at this time.
Yeah, I'm actually learning quite a bit about that because I used to be a huge fan of like green energy, but really it needs to move before we enforce it.
Exactly. Texas.
There's a lot of improvements that need to be made, even with solar panels.
Yeah. Exactly. Texas is a great example of it because they really dove into kind of Green New Deal policies. Not dove into, but like a lot of the trials for like Green New Deal stuff is going on in Texas. A lot of the movements to try to get into more greener energy is going on in Texas. So it's good to kind of look at them and see how things are going there in those states. So by the way, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Absolute mess. It's just when there comes a time when you need it, it's not there for you. You just can't. You don't have it. Those
Exactly, and it's really hard to store this stuff too.
Yeah, exactly. And another problem that they were having is the electricity. The electricity needed to be pumped somewhere. You needed gas lines to do that.
Yeah.
So what? Why do we?
Yeah, and it's like if people don't really know how this stuff works, I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos from like engineers, and they really dumb it down on how electricity works, how energy works, how things are stored, if they can be, so pretty good.
Oh yeah. So next we're going to talk about the next topic of the Afghanistan revolution somewhat is that we're going to talk about is women's rights and just how they're absolutely going down the toilet right now. I'm pulling up a story about a woman named Shakraya Barakzai. I really don't want to.
Peroxide, maybe?
Yeah, I don't want to completely butcher that name, and I'm sorry. But so it starts off by saying, one morning in the summer of 1999, Shakraya Barakzai woke up feeling dizzy and feverish. According to the Taliban's rules, she needed a mahram, a male guardian, in order to leave the home to visit the doctor. Her husband was at work and she had no sons. So she shaved her 2-year-old daughter's head, dressed her in boys' clothing to pass her off as a guardian, and slipped on a burqa. Its blue folds hid her fingertips, painted red in violation of the Taliban's ban on nail polish.
What the fuck?
She asked her neighbor, another woman, to walk with her to the doctor in central Kabul. Around 4:30 p.m., they left the doctor's office with a prescription. They were heading towards the pharmacy when a truckload of Taliban militants from the Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and Prevention of Vice pulled up beside them. The men regularly drove around Kabul in pickup trucks, looking for Afghans to publicly shame and punish for violating their moral code. The men jumped out of the truck and started whipping Barakzai with a rubber cable until she fell over, then continued whipping her. When they finished, she stood up crying. She was shocked and humiliated. She had never been beaten before. So, that's what this country represents. That's what the Taliban is as a nation. That's what the Taliban is as a political movement.
And I know, like, I think a woman got beat. I don't know where I heard this from. I don't know if it was a podcast or something. But, like, a woman got beat because her ankles were showing.
It makes sense. I
It's
didn't
just
see
like-
that article, but, like, I can imagine. It makes perfect sense. They want burqas. They want this guardianship. They want to make sure that women understand their place in society. And I'm putting air quotes
That
around
they
that.
need men. And
Yeah.
that they are for men.
Yeah, these aren't my views. I don't want to misconstrue that at all. I'm just saying these are the political views of the Taliban. That women need men in order to do anything. And it's such a 180 to the American way of life. It's such a 180 to the growing feminist movement and the growing, there is no feminist movement in Afghanistan when the Taliban is in control.
Yeah,
There
they
can't be.
can.
They'll all be shot. They will unload machine guns onto everybody. Or, and this might be worse, public humiliation. They might beat every single person there. Like, this is ridiculous.
This is really sad.
It's terrifying, and if you're a woman in that country, I saw that there was a transgender woman in that country. Hiding right now. What do you think's going to happen to her if she gets caught?
She's probably gonna get killed.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even think she'll get beat up. I think she'll actually just be killed.
I think she might become a hostage.
Yeah.
I think there's a good chance that they will try to pull as many gay Americans, as many women from America, as many, all of the branches of people that they don't like.
And the reason why they're out and living their lifestyle is because they have been for a while, right? And then they took over and they're just suddenly enforcing laws again.
You're saying the Taliban?
Yeah.
Well, we've been fighting them for 20 years, and they hear that we're pulling out, and they grow bigger. They hear that we're pulling out, so they're saying, okay, it's our time to take over. It's our time, because they see that the Afghan government is pretty weak. It is, there were a lot of reports that Ghani, their president, was very corrupt, that he was a murderer, that he killed people, that, he was taking deals to mess up Afghanistan, but in reality, like, it would help him and it would help his family's pockets. So we knew that there was weak leadership at the top. We knew that they weren't going to do anything well. So, and the Taliban knows that too. The Taliban knows when its pressure points are strong, when it can push on and do more for their beliefs and stuff.
Yeah.
It goes on to say, are you familiar with something we call sadism? Barakzai asked me when we spoke recently. Like, they don't know why, but they are just trying to beat you, harm you, disrespect you. This is now what they enjoy. Even they don't know the reason. She credits this moment for the birth of her life as an activist. Before Afghanistan's capital descended into civil war in 1992, Barakzai had been studying hydrometeorology and geophysics at Kabul University, when the Taliban, then a relatively new militia, emerged victorious in 1996. Afghan women were forced to leave their studies. As Barakzai recovered from the beating, she made a decision. She would organize underground classes for girls at a sprawling apartment complex where she and her family lived, home to some 45 families.
Oh my God.
Barakzai would go on to help draft Afghanistan's constitution and serve 2 terms in parliament.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
That's really awesome that she did that.
yeah, I really wanted to highlight this because I wanted to show the ability of women in Afghanistan. I wanted to show that even though they have been put down and stuff, they will be okay. That the they'll be okay. That they're still strong, they're still going to do big things, that they're still going to want to help out, and that's something that the United States people should have been doing. That's something that, or not the people per se, but the troops. That's something that's a mission that we kind of needed to be on. And Biden said in his statement the other day that we weren't world building, or country building, but
And now it's all just being destroyed.
yeah, I think country
All
building.
this hard work.
Yeah. Because, what's to say that this isn't going to happen now? What's to say that, and they said that they're going to be a bit more moderate. We'll dive into that, but who's to say that we believe that? Who's to say that, because I don't know if that's
I don't
very
know.
true.
They're pretty extreme. I don't really see them going from
What's
extreme to
happened?
moderate overnight. Not at all.
No, and we're seeing them shoot people trying to escape the airport. We're seeing
And women that are going, I heard this from the Ben Shapiro podcast, that, by the way, I am a huge fan of Ben Shapiro. Even when I
Oh,
was
yes.
a liberal, he was my favorite.
Yes, Ben's a great guy.
He explained that women get acid thrown in their face for attempting to go to school. Acid.
Yes.
And it's so inhumane. It is so inhumane. And it's like, this is definitely not what we need after we've had this whole pandemic, or I like to call it scamdemic for
Or
many
plandemic.
reasons. Yeah, plandemic, that's a good one too. And all of this stress, the mental health, the suicide rates, everybody is suffering during this time. And now this is not helping. That's definitely not helping at all.
No, it's
making it absolutely worse. Like, I would be, if I were these women that were stuck here, I would probably be suicidal. I'd try to find a way to kill myself. I know that sounds weak, but
I don't know if we're at that point right now. I think they're hoping that Biden will do something to get them out. I don't think it's, but it's, we had people jumping out of the buildings on 9/11. So we are at that point in some ways. Do you see, like, you get what comparison? I'm saying, like,
yeah.
when it's the Taliban, death might be the better option at times.
And it's crazy because they would willingly sacrifice themselves to do this much destruction to people.
Exactly.
Like, it just shows how horrible they are. And Ben Shapiro likes to call them barbaric, like
They
living way back BC even, because that's
Yeah.
just how they are.
And I saw that he made the point that we lost to a barbaric nation that pretty much fights like it's the 1800s.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are we doing? How are we this weak as a country? Could it be the woke generals that we've put in? Could it possibly be that? The person who
The
wants
weak president that we have.
our generals came out and said, I want to know what white rage is. How would you defend our people?
Yeah, let's stop talking about race. Like, I'm so done talking about race. Like, why are we so hyper focused on it? I get maybe in the 60s
Yeah.
we are focused on it for good freaking reasons, but now why? We're all equal legally. We might not all have the same opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're all coming from different backgrounds and different lifestyles and poverty rates, or some people are privileged actually in that kind of sense. But why are we focusing so much on race? Like, all white people are privileged.
It does not play a difference in your life the way that people make it out to be. Race does not play a part into your decisions.
Unless you make it.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's not something that any Republican has said throughout any of this time, throughout the past decades, race is not a factor. We want you to be able to do it. That's why we believe in school choice. If you're going to a shitty
Absolutely.
If you're going to a shitty school, we want you to have an opportunity to go to a better school that will train you and be able to make you capable of doing things in society.
Like, yeah, if you live in a poor neighborhood, maybe you're able to go to a higher neighborhood school.
Exactly.
I am all for school choice. And I just learned about that, like, last year.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know anything about school choice, and I felt like that would have been a great idea, especially when I moved. Like, midway in junior year, that would have been great. I would still love to go to my old school every day if I could. I would drive there every day if I could, you know?
We always, say that we need, Democrats always say that we need to throw money at the problem in order to fix it, and it's No. School choice would allow certain schools to close. Certain schools that are failing to shut down because they're failing. They're not educating kids. They're not creating an incentive to learn anything.
Or they don't have enough like programs and stuff. Like when I went from my school to my new school, from a worse neighborhood to a better neighborhood, I noticed that my better neighborhood school had a lot more classes, a lot more opportunities, and I appreciate it, but...
And things will get better if you close down schools and expand them together. If you bring a bunch of teachers who are good from this school district that closed down and you invest them into this school district, all those taxpayers, all those people that were going to that school will now become taxpayers for that school as well. So they're getting more money, they're getting this and that. They're going to be able to pay their teachers, they're going to be able to pay for these programs more. They're getting that taxpayer base from everybody. I don't see a problem with it. I don't see how throwing money at it is the solution, because we've seen that it's not. We've seen year after year after year that just throwing money into it will not make it better. It won't just, you have to have good leadership. You have to have, so it's survival of the fittest. Why isn't our school system in somewhat of a survival of the fittest mindset,
I honestly agree with that, yeah.
We want good schools. Countries are competing. We are competing with other countries. We need to make sure that we're presenting the best kids that we can. And the best way to do that is to make sure.
And that's not only just good for them, but it's also really good for our society.
Yes, exactly. It's we think, just think about it. The kids that were born in 2000 are now 21 years old. We're growing into that position where we're about to go into the workforce. We're about to go into, we're about to change the world. We're about to do things that are going to be different than other generations have done. So, it's important. It's important to think about the fact that, kids born during the, at the new century? Yeah, century.
Mm-hmm.
People born at the new century at this point are now...
Or generation, maybe you're thinking?
Yeah, maybe generation. Yeah. But I'm saying people born at the very start of the century, at 2000, 110, 100, 2000, and onward. Those people are now growing into full-fledged adults. So what helped those people was school. What helped those people was, to get to where they're at is understanding, the world around them. And that's what school is supposed to provide for us. If we're not doing the best school systems, if we're not creating a good system for us to learn, then we're going to be behind a lot of other countries.
Yeah, and I can definitely talk a lot about the education system, like my criticisms on the education system, even though I was a straight A student in high school, middle school, whatever. I could definitely talk a lot about that, but maybe we could save that for another time, because I think that's important as well to talk about.
Oh yeah. Let's get back into a story about Afghanistani women. Now, Nicole and I are looking at a bunch of pictures now, and I'll clip these into the podcast. So it starts off by saying, under the first picture, it says that an 11-year-old girl studies at home in 2020, several years after her family fled ongoing fighting and insecurity in Ghazni province. Yeah, this looks like old times. This looks like it's the 1920s. When you visit tenement housing and you see what was going on, this looks like what was going on in the 1920s. This is like a time machine.
How sad. And I think about my sister, because she's 13, and she, you said 12 years old, they would be out of schools, right?
Yep.
Now, do you know why that is? Is that because, they're supposed to, get married at that time? I don't know how it is.
I think it's a bunch of societal... I think it's a multitude of things. I think it could be the marriage. I think it could be you're supposed to do housework at that point.
Only be at the house.
Yeah.
And okay.
I think it could also just be that they don't respect women to the point where they're like, you don't need an education past this time, or they don't want women to be educated past that point. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're actively going, they're trying to make sure that women aren't educated. Possibly. I think that could be a part of it as well. you know, and it's horrific. It's terrible. It's something that, you know, it's idiotic. It's idiocracy because any person can tell you that you can gain a benefit from anybody. You can gain something for your country by using everybody in the workforce. You know, the more people you have in the workforce, the more people you have that are educated, the more people that you have that are benefiting your
all
society.
different minds, all different ideas. That's
Exactly.
very beneficial to not only the country but the whole world.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be different. It's just the more people you have educated, the better off you will be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not going to get a bunch of
Educated the right way,
Yeah.
mind you.
I'm saying thoroughly educated, like
Yeah.
actually educated people who are smarter and people who actually spend time reading books and doing studies, doing this and that. Countries are much better off if they have that in their. You know,
Yeah, like it
if they
would be
have that.
better to learn actual like history and how things work so that we don't repeat it over critical race theory.
Yes, because
But that's just my opinion, I guess.
yeah, because I mean, it's just if it's not based in fact, if it's based on lies, if it's based on a 1619 project, if it's based on this or that, if it's, you know, I'm talking about critical race theory here. If it's not based in fact, then why are we wasting our time? Why are we trying to indoctrinate our kids? Why are we trying to do this and that when it's
Absolutely.
not beneficial to our people? You know, we always complain about school not teaching us anything important. Why is critical race theory super important to your life?
Right. Like why can't we learn about like how to do our taxes or something like that? Like God forbid.
Yeah, auto body shops used to be in schools,
Wow.
but now it's critical race theory. So, pulling up two more pictures, it says, on the left, female teachers attend a meeting about the reopening of schools at the Educational Headquarters Building in Kandahar, Afghanistan, December 19th, 2001. On the right, Afghan Hazara students attend the Marfit School on the outskirts of Kabul, April 10th, 2010. So, I would say the major difference that I see is that on the left, all of the women are in burqas. They're
Yeah, and
fully
this is
covered.
2001, so yeah,
Yeah.
they're all, not even, like, their faces are completely covered. Like, I didn't even know they had those kind of things where even their eyes are covered and they
Yeah.
see through stuff.
Yeah, it's freaking creepy. It's, like, these pictures are just horrific. I hate seeing this. This is something that, like, just...
And it's like, no matter, I'm sorry, but no matter what a woman wears, men are still going to find them attractive, sexually attractive, physically, whatever. And it's like, that's not, I don't think that really helps at all.
Yeah, no, I think it's just oppressive. I don't
It
know
is.
enough about their policies, but it seems very much because men will still rape these women. Men will
Now,
still.
like, it's probably, like, married women, I'm assuming, that has to be dressed in this, or, like, I have no idea.
I'm not. You might be right. I don't know enough culturally about the Taliban.
Guess we'll have to look into that.
Yeah. The last picture that they show is schoolgirls in Kandahar, Afghanistan, February 7th, 2009. The previous November, 16 girls had been sprayed with acid by Taliban sympathizers while walking to school there. Most resumed attending, despite constant threats to their safety.
Wow, yep, so this is probably what Ben was talking about.
Yeah. But I've heard multiple stories of that where schoolgirls were, just getting bats of acid thrown on them.
And
where
they're
they were-
children, they're literal children.
Yeah.
How sick.
It's all indoctrination of youth. It's all, if you can get into the mindset that you should be scared of the Taliban and you should follow what they say because you don't want them to kill you at a very young age, if you can get them thinking that at 5 years old, they will always think that. If you
Yeah.
if you keep that constant pressure of the Taliban in your head, then you won't ever let it go. It's
And it's really sad that, like, people in America are saying that we have so many women's issues here. Women have so many opportunities. And it's
Yeah.
just like, do you not realize that there's other countries that do this, or like in Africa where they literally still do genital mutilation?
Yeah, and
Just and it's the kind of mutilation where they don't feel pleasure during sex, which I think is very important for like humans in general, like and relationships.
Yeah.
It's like they're made to feel like, no, you are this guy's property. You're not the one that's supposed to feel pleasure. It's the men. And it's just like, wow. So you say that we have problems in America. Sure, we might have some stereotypes. There's always going to
Yes.
be sexist people. There's always going to be racist people. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at these countries, and it's like,
Yeah.
what the hell are we comparing ourselves to?
Yep. No, that's something that drives us nuts. When I think about problems in the United States, you kind of got to look at it comparatively. So, what problems do we have that are worse than other countries? Because then you can really see what are our big problems. You know, because
Right.
if you just base it off of what you're feeling are the big problems in your country, then they might not be big problems.
Yeah, and it's so narrow-minded too. Like you're
Exactly.
not expanding your experiences to how other people do things. This is why I love traveling, because I meet new people
Yeah.
and different ways of life.
Exactly.
And it's like, it would be very awesome for, let's say, liberals to go see communist countries and see how really bad it is, or how,
Yeah.
like, good we have it here, whatever you want to see it as, or both,
Yeah.
you know?
It's something that drives me nuts because we'll be complaining about stuff that on the grand scheme of things isn't a big deal, because in reality you see other countries and you see how
Right.
bad they have it in police brutality, how bad they have it in rape cases, how bad they have it in this or that. You know, there's certain things
Right, like
that
it's normalized in these countries.
Exactly.
Like that's normal.
Exactly, and it kind of points out to me that the government is deflecting. They want you to focus on this bullshit, so that way you're not focused on, you know, human sex trafficking. You're not focused on
Children
children
being
trafficking.
raped.
You're not worried about your health as much as you should be. You're not worried about this or that.
And it's so funny when the government is like I think it's pretending that they care about our health because of COVID.
No,
But
they don't.
the main cause of death, or at least one of the main causes of death, is heart disease. And where do we get that
Mhm.
from? Our food, our lifestyles that they
Yeah.
encourage, that they make cheaper. And it's just like, I think it's silly if people are thinking that they actually care about us, like the government actually
No,
cares about
they
our health and
absolutely
well-being.
don't. They do the very bare minimum in order to make it look like they are trying, in order to make it look like they're caring. And they don't do anything. They don't, in reality, do anything to benefit you. They don't try to, help you. They'll say that they are. They'll say that they're doing these policies in order to benefit you, but they're just cashing out. They're just making whatever, they're just doing whatever they can to push money into their pockets.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad. I disapprove. We need better leadership. We need better people in power. And there have been many calls for Biden to be impeached. It makes sense. We need good leadership. We need good, powerful
Yeah,
people
it's
in front of us.
pathetic. It's honestly pathetic right now.
It is. So let's go back to the article. It says that I first traveled to Afghanistan in May 2000 when I was 26 years old. 26 years old. I don't know if I said that. I was living in India at the time, covering women's issues in South Asia as a photojournalist, and I was curious about the lives of women living under the Taliban. Afghanistan was then emerging from 20 years of brutal conflict, first with the occupying Soviets, and then in a protracted civil war that had left Kabul pockmarked and with little functioning infrastructure. In the mid-1990s, the Taliban had promised to bring an end to the violence, and many Afghans, exhausted from years of insecurity and relentlessness, destruction, and did not resist the Islamic fundamentalist group. But peace came at the cost of many social, political, and religious freedoms. And we're seeing that. What do you value more? What do you value in life more? Being able to live your life? Plus, it's not even peace. In reality, if
Clearly.
if you're terrified of doing the wrong thing, if you're terrified of going outside without a sheet completely covering you, if you're
Or without a mask, let's say.
yeah, without a mask, you're not free. You're in a position where there's no safety. There's nothing that, you've got a military force, the size of a military force. I'm not going to call Taliban military. Maybe we could call it the Taliban military force, but, if they're going to be there and impose certain rules that are just ridiculous, then you don't really have freedom. You don't really have choice. You don't really have any safety there. Women who did go out were required to wear burqas, a traditional modesty garment that fits tightly over the head and drapes all the way to the ankles, rendering a woman fully covered and unidentifiable in public. All forms of entertainment were banned for everyone: music, television, socializing between sexes outside the family. Most educated Afghans had already fled to neighboring Pakistan and elsewhere. Those who stayed had to change their lives and to conform to the dictates of the oppressive regime.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
It's horrible.
this is what happens when authoritarian countries take over. You don't get to speak. You don't get to talk about your issues. You don't get to discuss
No
what's
freedom
going
of
on.
speech. And it's like we see this now in America where we're starting to become a little bit more and more authoritarian because like we're being censored and we can't say, even if it offends you or hurts you,
Hate
turn
speech.
turn off the computer or change something else. Like
Yeah.
everybody's gonna have opinions, everybody's gonna be horrible and mean, whatever, however you see it. But it's like the Republican, this was especially during the election where the Republicans, conservatives, they were being silenced and all the things were being labeled as misinformation. But it's just like, this is all new stuff right now, so really anything can be misinformation. Unless if it's backed up by science that's actually proven.
Wouldn't calling us Nazis be misinformation?
Yeah,
Wouldn't calling us racist be misinformation?
could be.
It's if you're like, that's what really gets to me. It's you'll scream and yell about Republicans saying certain things. You'll scream and yell about, and a lot of times we find it to be true. We're not just pulling stuff out of our ass for the most part. Obviously.
Yeah, we actually have things to back ourselves up
Yes.
with.
Obviously, there are certain figures who will, just put out lies, but
Yeah, and there are ignorant Republicans too,
Mhm.
like very
Yes,
ignorant
exactly.
people and
Exactly.
people like not the Ku Klux, just people who are absolutely racist and will say like black people need to hang and stuff. Like that's just horrible shit.
yeah. But it's not the sentiment of Republicans. It's not something that.
It's like the extreme. The
Yes,
extreme of
exactly.
the Westboro Baptist Church, I think they are Republican, right?
I believe
Maybe?
so.
Yeah, something. But it's just like these are just extreme people, just like there's extreme people on the left. And it's like, but the extreme people on the left aren't being silenced on
No.
Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
No, exactly. They paint us as extremists because they don't want us paying attention to their extremists. They don't want us to be looking at what they're doing and who they have doing things. It's scary.
Yeah. And another favorite podcast of mine, Louder with Crowder,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
been removed multiple times
Multiple
on YouTube.
I-
Even though he was following the guidelines, he actually has a lawyer that looks into this stuff, and it's just like this is horrible. Like,
Yeah.
like if you say, well, it's hate speech, therefore it shouldn't be said. Well, then that's not freedom of speech. I don't care how offended you get. I don't care how offended I get. I just move on with my day or fight that person. Hey, whatever.
Hate speech is the
Be
next,
immature.
Hate speech is the next authoritarian law. It
Yeah.
is because you know what the
It
issue with
limits
hate speech is?
everything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it limits everything, but you know what the problem is? What's the definition of hate speech? Can you tell me
Saying
one?
racist stuff.
Can you tell me what hate speech is?
or, Like.
There's no defined definition.
It was really hard for me to actually define it. Yeah, like
There-
things that can be hateful to some people, but it's like it might not be hateful to all people. Or
It's very broad. Hate
Yeah.
speech, that's the big issue. And it's something that we're saying it's a list, and it's an ever-growing list, and it's a list that can have anything on it. It's if this person deems it to be hate speech, then it can be hate speech.
Yep.
if I
Or how Facebook says if they deem it to be misinformation, or the CDC deems it to be misinformation, then they can easily remove that.
Yeah. Think about this narrative. You're wearing a bandana. If I walk up to you and say, hey, I like your bandana, and then you go to a cop and say, that's hate speech, I don't like it, then that can become hate speech, and I can get arrested for that and thrown in jail for the next 10 years because I said something that is now on the list that it goes back to the LGBT.
Yeah, and like
argument.
people are like don't compliment women, like catcalling or stuff. Like I've been catcalled before, and honestly, I kind of take a little bit of pride in it because it's just like, damn, this person finds me kind of attractive.
Yeah, I
now
understand
touching
yeah,
is
no.
another different story, but
Don't touch
like,
me if it's overly
it's so
done.
harmless. Words, you can make words so harmless. I know
Yeah.
words can mean a lot, like if you've been verbally abused
Exactly.
and stuff. But when it's just some random person on Facebook saying something stupid to you, it's stupid. Like,
Yeah.
why take it to heart? Why?
Sarah and
Like,
I have
move
talked.
on.
Yeah, Sarah and I have talked about it, about how words have the context that you give it. Words have the meaning that you give to it. So if you don't put enough value into the words that somebody is saying, then you won't be offended by the words that they're saying. You won't be, you won't take them seriously.
That's a very good point.
Life is, words are about the power that you give them. And it's the same with certain, the word bitch. Let's say that, I don't want to make this a curse chat, but it's the power in the context that you give it. You can say bitch in a way that's not derogatory. Well, dogs. You could say, oh, look at that bitch, and it's a female dog. It's a literal female dog. That's a proper term for it. You can also, there are ways that
Yeah, and
it's
it's
the
like
power
I've
of-
been called fat before when I was in like middle school, and I personally
Mhm.
didn't feel like I was, and I just
No.
fucking laughed at him. I'm just like, dude,
Exactly.
like, hey, good for you if that's what you think. Move on, dude,
Exactly.
buddy. Like, find somebody who's skinny, I guess.
Yes, we need to pay attention to the words that say, we need to pay attention to the quotes that we've heard since we were little kids. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never harm me. There are other quotes that are escaping my memory right now, but it's a very true thing, and it's something that we kind of, as a country, have forgotten about.
And become more sensitive.
Yes, we've become hypersensitive. We've become to the point where nobody can say anything that goes against our belief system. Nobody can say anything that we don't agree with. Otherwise, it's racist. Otherwise, it's this or that. And it's a ridiculous thing.
Yeah, so yeah, we are definitely becoming more authoritarian, at least under liberal rules. But as for these people in Afghanistan, if they just dress a certain way and they get whipped or killed
Mhm.
for it, and it's just
Yes, exactly.
it's
And
horrible. People really need to find the perspective of
Mhm.
this.
Yeah, and certain people will take what we said before about how first world problems and how we can look at certain things and say, oh, it's not as bad as other places, but we are worried about the loss of freedom of speech because it's a stepping stone. It's not just, oh, you can't send out tweets that you don't like, that
Just
you like
like
anymore.
gun control is eventually going to be a stepping step.
Yes.
Now, I
They're
know
all
we need
stepping
regulations, that's
Yeah.
obvious,
Yeah.
but gun control, having no guns at all is kind of really bad. Because then that would just lead to, oh, well, the government has all the guns and you can't protect yourself, just like these people.
Yes.
So,
And, I lost my train of thought for 2 seconds. Sorry. I had a thought. What were we talking about 2 seconds ago?
gun control.
Oh, but just, it's a stepping stone for, when you get rid of freedom of speech, we're going to start limiting more and more. When they get rid of your ability to tweet, they're going to start saying, okay, now Fox News publications are going to be spreading misinformation and it can't be on TV, so you can only have left-wing sources on TV. And then comes, only left-wing sources in the newspapers. And then comes this and that. It's small changes because rapid changes, people figure it out. People see it. People see just how big things change, and it scares people. If you put in these little changes here or there, it makes people's stomach get a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big story. Okay, this kind of reminds me of the eBay story. eBay one was originally, I think, yellow. Like their page was completely yellow.
Okay.
One day, they switched to bright white, the way that they did. People hated it. Everybody, people boycotted eBay. They didn't want to be on the, didn't want to shop from there because they hated the new look. So eBay, yeah, okay.
It's literally a color, but all right.
Mhm. What eBay did was that they changed it back to the original color, and then every single day for the next few years, they changed it 2 tones down. 2 tones. 2 tones. They kept incrementally bringing it down and down and down until it's bright white, and that's why it's white today.
That's hilarious.
It's just a sign that once people won't notice. People, if you incrementally change little things here and there, they won't notice when the big ask is at them. They
Yeah.
won't, and that's kind of what happened with the pandemic, where, okay, 15 days to slow the spread.
Yeah,
We'll
2
put on
years
masks.
on, 15 days.
No, exactly. We'll put on our masks, we'll stay locked down for 15 days, we'll do this and that, and then, so it's a small ask. Everybody made it out to be like, okay, it's a small ask, it's protecting everybody.
Yeah, like you're only going to be out of school for 2 weeks.
Here we are 2 years later. Still following these rules, still doing this and that. And that's exactly what I'm saying. If you make them small changes, that's why we have to pay attention to the small changes. We have to blow them up to what they will be and what they can be, because we see it time and time again that that's how things happen.
You have a really good point about that.
Yeah. Like, Hitler, he took away Jews' guns because he said that they were, they would use them against the government. They would do this and that. They would, gun control.
Wow. See, I didn't even know that. Like I said, I sucked at history.
Yeah. So they took all the guns from the Jews, claiming, it's dangerous, gun control, this and that. And then they couldn't defend themselves when they were being thrown into internment camps. That's why we're so adamant about this first, second, all of the amendments, because
Yeah, we don't want to repeat history.
Yes, because it's slipping. It's stepping stones. It's when you let little things slip, that's when big things start happening. That's when, it's stepping stones. When you get, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, like I see that actually with the vaccines right now here too, where it's just like they're kind of enforcing it, or they're limiting your ability to go see
Exactly.
movies, or to whatever, go, I don't even know what other places besides movies, to be honest, but I know like in New York City. Grocery stores? Wow, that's messed up.
Everything. Anything that could possibly have, I think, like 1,000 people in it is closed. And
you have to show your papers.
Yeah. And that's more things than people think of. In reality, it is a movie theater. There are 1,000 people in a movie theater at a time. There are 1,000 people in a grocery store at a time. So they'll put out this big number that everybody's like, oh, that's okay. But you don't realize, like, wherever you go, in Walmart, there's 1,000 people at a time.
In malls, shopping.
In malls, there's 1,000 people at a time. Everywhere you go, unless you're going to, like, get your car fixed or something at a small shop, there's going to be about 1,000 people around you. If you're going to a big store, if you're going to a big store, the place where the pandemic has pretty much forced us only to shop at, because all of these small businesses are closed, you won't be able to go there without a vaccine mandate, without your vaccination. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so we're definitely getting there, and I really hope it stops soon.
Yeah.
And now I think a lot of people are waking up.
Yeah, I hope so, and it's part of why I created my Instagram account and this platform, because I wanted to speak up. I wanted to build a base that can say that we can all kind of push people to speak up.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people are like silent majority, literally, like they are too afraid to speak out or lose friends, because I'm actually doing that right now, and I can tell you later after this is done, I almost lost a friend because I posted something and she didn't agree with it, and it's just kind of sad.
It's kind of ridiculous to me, because we've had to sit the past 4 years watching whatever they wanted to post, and we've had to sit there and say, it's okay, they're allowed to have their political views, they're allowed to believe what they want, we're not going to look at them as, we're not going to not be friends with them just because they don't agree with us. And the first second that we disagree with what they're doing, you're racist, you're this, you're that, you're a terrible person. you're
Yeah,
not."
they always give you names, and I was called a bunch of names by her too, and I'm just like, whoa, I don't even know what some of these mean. Like,
Exactly.
I had to look
It's-
them up. Like,
the
what?
first move is to put out all of the iphobes that they can find, all of the, everything, they're going to put out all the ists, all of the iphobes, all of the, whatever they can use to kind of make you look bad. Whatever they can use to make you feel like you're a bad person for
Or
the way that
the
you're.
enemy of
Yeah.
America.
Yeah. And I think it's ridiculous. And you're going to tell, like, you're going to
It's
say.
sad. Like, let's sit down and talk. Like, I disagree with you on some things, I'm sure, but we still talk about it.
Exactly.
And I'm not a huge debater, but I'm cool with listening to you and you listening to me. And hey, maybe we could learn something.
Exactly. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed this very much.
me too.
I think that marks the end of our podcast. Nicole, it was lovely to have you on the podcast. We had a great conversation, and I look forward to having you on the podcast in the future, if you would like.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. It was really nice.
Yeah, we're sorry that Sarah had to leave midway through. She is not able to finish this closure, but thank you for joining our podcast. If you liked it, leave a like, leave a comment if you have any topics you kind of want to talk to us about, and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.